Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, where we discuss all things DC and Marvel related, review superhero films, and debate who would win in Marvel vs. DC matchups. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And Demon's twin brother, Johnny DC.
And this episode we'll be reviewing Spider-Man 2.
It's a throwback episode, or a review, rewind, I don't know what to call it.
It's a throwback episode.
There
whatever.
we go.
Why are we reviewing Spider-Man 2, you might ask? That is because next episode is going to be a review of the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, which comes out next Friday, July 7th.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying it's really good. A lot of early reviews have come out already, and there's kind of a debate going on the internet among people trying to decide whether or not it's better or worse than Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 largely considered
it's the gold standard,
being the best Spider-Man movie that has come out. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely wanted to see it just as a it's a good
reference point.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, if you watch this with us, you'll be able to also make that same kind of comparison after everybody sees Spider-Man Homecoming and we review that one, just to see is it better or worse, is it the same? My guess is it's gonna be about the same. Although I mean it'll be hard to top this movie. Basically, watched it again last night for the first time in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I almost forgot. It is just raining shit on Peter Parker that entire movie.
It's kind of depressing.
Like the end is so good. It's so cathartic because he pretty much gets everything that he wanted. Everything being
spoiler alert if
Mary
you haven't
Jane.
seen the movie.
Oh God! If you haven't seen Spider-Man 2, what are you doing?
Wait, listen to this.
What are you doing in life? Go see it, and then come back and listen to this, and then listen to our next episode where we talk about Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
So
Maggie's on this episode, as we mentioned at the end of last episode, we have a guest review with us. If you listened to our Comic-Con episode from last year, Maggie Hart will be joining us again. She's a huge Spider-Man fan. So once we get to that, she'll jump on.
Absolutely the best person to review a Spider-Man movie with, because she loves the character possibly more than I do. I don't know. Well, I don't know. That's
is that possible?
I don't know if it's possible, but
it might be with Maggie.
With Maggie, it might be. All right. So this episode will also be going into the latest comic book news or comic book movie related news. We'll be discussing the first Inhumans trailer that dropped a few days ago. We'll be talking about the Flash director news, possibly what's going on with that.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming cast list that revealed some surprises. There might be some spoilers there, so we'll list all the time codes in the episode description so you can skip over whatever you want to. We'll also be talking about the Venom movie with Tom Hardy. We'll be talking about the HBO Watchmen series and the Titans television series.
Yeah.
They had a character breakdown list that came out about a week ago.
Yeah.
So, before we get into the news, though, as always, it's trivia time. Congrats to
Spees.
Again, Adam Spees. The dude is smart as a whip when it comes to his comic book trivia.
He knows his shit.
He answered last episode's trivia question correctly, which was, what were the first video games for both Marvel and DC that were based off of movies? And the correct answer was, for Marvel, it was Howard the Duck, which came out in 1986, and it was loosely based off of the movie that came out at that time. And the first movie-based video game for DC was Batman, which came out in 1989. Mm-hmm. So, you got both those questions right. That means he gets a special one-of-a-kind
no prize
from us.
Yeah. Which is based off of Marvel's no prizes that they used to award how far back?
Maybe I think it was back in the 70s and 80s.
70s, 80s?
90s.
It's based off of that, sort of. I add a drawing of you based on, some current relevant news. Maybe not relevant, I don't know. I've been drawing a lot of Marvel characters, which disappoints me. It might have to do a DC character this time. I don't know.
Well, the news has been so dominated by Marvel. They've come out with so much.
What the heck?
Yeah. Anyway, so this episode's trivia question is, since 1960, what was the first DC theatrical franchise to have a reboot also in theaters? Same question for Marvel. Go ahead and submit your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or you can email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. If you're going to reach out to us on social media, go ahead and do it via direct or private message.
Yeah, it's kind of an easy-ish question on the easier end, easier than last episodes, so definitely don't share it with everyone.
Yeah, because a random person who gets the correct answer will be the winner of that no prize on our next episode. And we will be giving out a hint for this trivia question later on in this episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So let's go ahead and get into the news.
We're starting off with TV news of sorts. Do you consider this TV news?
Yes. Well, the Inhumans is debuting its first 2 episodes on IMAX screens in theaters, so it's kind of both. I consider it kind of an Inhumans movie that is kind of has its continued story on ABC on television.
Okay.
So it's both, but we finally got that first trailer for the show.
I wonder how much of it is from the IMAX film and how much of it is from the actual show.
I would be willing to bet that 90 to 100% of this actually is from the movie.
Okay.
That's going to theaters, or rather the first 2 episodes, you know?
Yeah.
I think the story takes place from this setup, basically. And what it looks like is, they're taking some deviations from the standard Inhumans lore. It looks more like here it's like a rogue Inhumans outpost on the moon, and Maximus's character doesn't want to live under his brother's rule anymore, and he wants to live on Earth. Mm-hmm. We know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that there are Inhuman societies that live on Earth.
Oh, so, okay. I mean, I've seen conflicting reports as to whether or not this ties into the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, whether it's like in that same continuity. I guess MCU continuity, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is supposed to take place in that universe as well.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Basically, the Inhumans were humans that were kidnapped by the Kree and experimented on thousands of years ago. And so they have genetic potential to have superpowers. Basically, they're kind of like the X-Men, except instead of a result of natural evolution, they're the result of genetic tampering. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, pretty similar.
Yeah.
And also, they get their powers through exposure to what's called Terrigen mists, which they also make an appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So when you hit your coming of age, puberty time, you get exposed to the mists and you transform into your real self, your Inhuman self.
Yeah, it's
who has powers.
It's like a ritual, right? It's like called Terrigenesis.
Yes. The film focuses on the Inhuman royal family, which is Black Bolt, the king, who has his voice can like level a mountain.
Yeah, really powerfully destructive voice.
Yeah. His wife Medusa, she has long red hair and it's super strong, and she has prehensile control over it. Every single strand of hair is like steel that she could control.
And she could like grow it at will too, right?
Yes. So it's like if Dr. Octopus had thousands of arms that were thinner and red.
She's pretty powerful.
And they came out of his head. So there's Black Bolt's, the king's brother, Maximus, who narrates the vast majority of this trailer. He doesn't like being ruled under his brother in the comics, just like in this trailer. He has telepathic powers. He has some mental control. I don't see any of the alpha primitives in here, even though they did make an appearance on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But traditionally, he controls the...
I thought that like the people he was speaking to were the alpha primitives.
I don't believe
like
so.
a specific look?
Yes, they do have a specific look. They're like all bald. It's the result of Terrigenesis gone bad. It's the lowest caste in Inhuman society.
Uh-huh.
So he kind of controls them. They live in like the underground, kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
But we also, in this trailer, we also see Carnage. We see Gorgon, who stomps his foot and creates the little tremor at one point in the trailer in the jungle. We see Crystal. Briefly, actually, we didn't see as much of her as I thought we would, but she's the blonde with the stripes in her hair. Mm-hmm. She's Medusa's sister, and she could control the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, Captain Planet.
Heart.
And, we see Lockjaw, the dog. Yeah. And a little bit of Triton, too. But we'll go on.
Yeah, like one shot of Triton.
Yeah.
I thought he would be, like, at the feasting table.
Yeah, I think he was running with either Crystal or some other Inhuman.
I think it was Crystal.
He was running through the jungle, and he looks... I have to say, everything looks pretty generic in this. It's one of the most generic-looking things I've seen in my life.
I remember I was reading this article, just that was kind of reviewing the trailer, and it said these are the most boring-looking aliens I've ever seen. And they're not technically aliens.
No, they're human.
I mean... They kind of are aliens. They have like an alien kind of backstory and origin. You know?
Right.
So I would have to agree with that. I mean, when I think of Inhumans, I think of like there are some mutants that look like pretty extreme, like Nightcrawler or Beast, or and when I think of Inhumans, I think of like that.
The most extreme
mutations.
mutations.
The most extreme mutations, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like Lockjaw, I think we touched on this before. There's a version of him that where like he was a human or an Inhuman who went through Terrigenesis and became a dog, right?
Yeah, technically that's the canon. Lockjaw,
Okay.
He looks like a dog, but he's actually a human being who went through Terrigenesis and came out looking like a dog.
Right, it's like that extreme. It can be that extreme.
Yes. Yeah, it goes across the gamut in terms of normal to abnormal.
And all the people that like Maximus is like speaking to, like they definitely
look normal.
I mean, they look normal. I don't know.
Yeah, like, and all the costumes are drab. Like, we got our first look at the costumes like a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And our thoughts then were these are drab-looking, boring costumes. And basically the set pieces match the costumes. I gotta say, you gotta fire the costume designer, you gotta fire your set designer, fire the art director, whoever's working on this, because their vision is not inspired at all, really. And it doesn't look like everything looks so sterile on Adelan, which is on the moon, but it doesn't look sterile for sterile sake. Like, it looks sterile for lack of effort's sake.
It looks like it looks cheap.
Yes, and I know this thing had a huge budget. I think it had a larger budget than most of the Netflix shows. So
I think all of it went to the IMAX cameras, because I know those things aren't cheap.
It's possible. I don't know where the money went, but it really does look like they're working on a dime store budget here when they're not, according to what reports are saying. I mean, there are some interesting kind of set pieces. Like, there's a shot where we see like these two people dressed in white robes, and they're like sitting in this room, and their like feet are submerged. I have no idea exactly what's going on here, but it is a good look at all of the royal family in one room. And the design of that set is pretty interesting. It's kind of geometric architecture, kind of like Daniel Libeskind style architecture, and that's probably the most interesting shot in this whole trailer. Everything else is so sterile and so devoid of any sort of personality, and that, I mean, I'm harping on this, and I know that
it may be good.
Yeah, my feelings are negative right now. This is just a trailer. This whole thing might still blow me away. There's still potential here, but I will say that compared to what this could have been, like, this was supposed to be a movie that was coming out in theaters in 2019.
It was supposed to be a Phase 3 movie.
Yeah, and it kind of fell through. I know Marvel's CEO, Ike Perlmutter, was the one who heavily pushed this, and it kind of fell through the cracks due to the acquisition of Spider-Man, and so it got moved to TV. I don't think this even compares. I don't think it even comes close to what it could have been if it was its own movie, honestly. And I was super excited about this series, and
yeah,
we'll just have to see. I don't know. So scrolling through. Man, who's the actor that plays Maximus? I don't know his name. Iwan Reyes or something.
Yeah.
Ewan.
Something like that. I know him as Ramsay Bolton.
Oh, yeah, from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
He has a unique accent here. What do you think of his motivations? They seem pretty cut and dry. I would suspect that there's something more to it than just living on Earth and being free. I think
it's just sibling rivalry. That's what it seems like. He just doesn't want to live under his brother's rule. He wants to be on Earth. He wants to, he figures the humans are going to find him sooner or later. Why not just leave? And so he causes a treason, a mutiny.
Yeah. I almost wonder if he wants to go to Earth and take that over and become king of Earth.
I just wonder what real threat he poses. Like, how is he able... How do you overthrow Black Bolt? Is that even possible? I mean, I don't know.
Well, it looks
it kind of bothers me also that, like, to see, like, these soldiers with guns and stuff like that. It's like, all of these people have powers. Why do they have guns?
That's a good point.
All of them have, even the group of people he's talking to, again, they look so generic. Really, all of them have powers.
Right, exactly. That's. I didn't even think about that. There's a scene where he's like, are you going to use your voice against your own brother? And it looks like he's about to, and Maximus kind of freaks out. Like, what does he say? Shoot him or take care of him or stop him?
Yeah.
And then we see Lockjaw come in.
And that was I think that was my favorite scene of the whole trailer.
When Lockjaw came in?
I mean, yeah, when he confronts me, he's, you know, you're gonna use your voice to destroy me, and then like you could really see like he's about to like, you know, say something, and you just the look on Ramsay Bolton's face,
Maximus's.
Yeah, but on Maximus' face, you know, he's like freaked out. I didn't see Lockjaw coming. I thought shit was about to go down. I'm not sure why Black Bolt would flee,
or why Lockjaw would take him to Hawaii.
Yeah, you know it's Hawaii because like the Hawaiian guy in the Hawaiian shirt, like the stereotypical Hawaiian guy, is like, oh jeez. Just in case you were wondering where they were, but no, like it has to be something with like they managed to capture Medusa or something like that, and she's being held hostage, or maybe Crystal, or I don't know,
or maybe all the family.
Maybe
it looks like they're split up at some point because Black Bolt is teleported to the middle of a Hawaiian city. I don't know if it's Honolulu or something else, but the others are all in like jungles. They're not with him basically, so it looks like there's a divide and conquer kind of thing going on as part of Maximus's plan. Mm-hmm. He is one of the most brilliant criminal minds in the Marvel universe, so he would probably go with the whole divide and conquer thing. What do you think of Lockjaw's look? He doesn't have the tuning fork on his head. It's actually part of his fur.
Yeah.
We see this motif that's kind of like these double lightning bolts coming together in like a V shape.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's on Black Bolt's chest, but it also looks like it's the symbol for the Inhuman royal family as well.
Yeah, because it's over the throne. It's like a light fixture that's...
Yeah, it's over the throne and it's on Lockjaw's forehead.
Like an illuminated wall kind of...
Yes.
Thing. I don't know what to call it.
I think Lockjaw looks pretty good. I think the special effects they used on him are pretty interesting, especially the effect, his teleporting effect. It kind of like...
It's different.
It's different than what I thought it would be. Like, it's not like a flash of light or anything.
No. It's
like they kind of disintegrate into like this weird liquid mass that like flies away kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's good. I'm glad they came out with a new way to depict teleportation. It fits the character. As for like how good his CG is, it's not the worst.
It's good for a TV budget, I think. Maybe all the money is going into that.
Exactly.
But, I mean, if all the money was going into Lockjaw, you would still think that it would look better than what it does.
Yeah.
That being said, the effects might not be finished.
True. It looks as good as, King Shark does on the Flash show. So, yeah, when you say it's a TV, it's good enough for TV, then, yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But then again, it's on IMAX screens in theaters.
So it's going to have to be really good. Otherwise, it's just going to look like shit.
Yeah.
It's going to look like ass all over the screen.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to be that forgiving when it's on the screen as opposed to like when you're watching on your television show. There's a certain level of expectation when I'm watching something on IMAX.
Right.
There's
not, like, I'm scrubbing through the trailer and I'm like, there's nothing really to talk about here. It's also bland. There's an interesting shot at the end where Black Bolt is running from the police down the middle of a street. And they attack him. They're beating him up with batons. I don't know why they don't just shoot him because they have guns, but they hit him.
Maybe because he's not armed.
Yeah. Well, since when does that stop him?
That's true. Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But okay, so they hit him and he lets out a grunt, which Black Bolt should know better than that. He's better trained than that. But nevertheless,
yeah, it shows him like meditating earlier on in the trailer. Like the character has like gone through like some kind of like mental training so that he doesn't speak.
Yeah, so that he doesn't even slip up like that when he's being beaten like that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he does let out a grunt here, and it's kind of weird. It kind of goes through his teeth, but it looks kind of like it doesn't look that impressive. I thought it would look different.
I wish they wouldn't have shown the waves. Like you don't need to necessarily even show like any kind of anything. Just show the result of it.
Yeah, or if you are going to show the waves, make it look more unique, like putting some blue lightning in there or some shit. I don't know, because right now it kind of looks like Black Canary.
Yeah, it looks exactly like that.
It's
like, hey, CW, can we borrow that special effect? Sure, here you go.
The very last shot of the trailer shows Lockjaw again, and he's like play bowing, which is cute. Looks a little fake. But
he's
I
a
don't know.
dude. He's a dude. I don't know if I like the fact that he's acting like a dog, like a playful.
Well, he's not intelligent. Like when the guy, I forget what his real name was, when Lockjaw went under Terrigenesis, he lost a lot of his intelligence.
That's sad. There's like sort of a tragedy behind Terrigenesis, isn't there? I remember reading this one comic, Inhumans comic, where like this kid was like a star athlete, like in school, Inhuman school, and he thought he was going to be so great when he went through Terrigenesis, and he became like this lower level kind of.
He was an artist, but he wasn't interested in art as a kid. So, yeah, like you don't know what you're going to come out as after Terrigenesis. That's kind of the whole.
It's kind of metaphor for life.
It's like a Russian roulette kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
but instead of getting killed, you get powers. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the Inhumans trailer. Overall, I mean, like, I saw the leaked trailer that came out before this, and that was super underwhelming. I'm glad they didn't release that. I think they didn't release that for a reason, because it wasn't finished.
Right.
It wasn't what they wanted to show the world. So this is better than that.
Definitely.
It's not better than what it could have been. So at least that's my impression that I'm getting.
To me, the most disappointing thing is still Medusa's hair.
Yeah.
Every time I see that, I'm just like, why are you going with such a shitty wig?
Yeah.
Like, don't.
Don't do that.
Like,
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think the best that we go for right now is to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, hopefully.
At best.
Hopefully.
You never know. Anyway, I think that does it for that trailer news.
Yeah.
Moving on to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Tell us what's going on with them.
So yeah, this kind of goes all the way back to 2015. They wrote a treatment for The Flash back then, and then like it was always rumored that they may direct, but they ended up not doing that.
Yeah, and it would have been great because they're great directors. They directed the Lego Movie.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think what else. Oh,
the
21 Jump
Street films. Yeah, they're good comedic directors.
Yeah.
And you know, The Flash is always rumored to sort of have like that comedic slant. So when they ended up not directing, I think it was because they got an offer or were interested in directing this Han Solo film. So then, The Flash went on to other directors like Rick Famuyiwa and stuff like that. So, or even before Rick Famuyiwa, it was, what is his name? The guy who wrote Pride,
Seth
Prejudice.
Grahame-Smith.
Yeah, Seth Grahame-Smith. That's right. So anyway, they've been filming Han Solo, and they were recently fired by Kathleen Kennedy. She's the Kevin Feige of Star Wars.
She's the president of Lucasfilm.
Yeah. And so, according to Humberto Gonzalez, people may know him as El Maimbe. He's a writer for The Wrap, and he's the one who broke the news about Phil Lord and Chris Miller meeting with DC during a filming hiatus on Han Solo about maybe directing The Flash, which we don't know if they knew that they may potentially get fired from Han Solo or not, or what happened there. But I like the news. I do like the news. I mean, they're not doing anything right now, so why not get back on The Flash? You left The Flash to do this Han Solo movie. You're not doing that anymore. But then again, I've also heard that the current frontrunner for The Flash is Robert Zemeckis, who I think could do a pretty good job with the film. He's a big name, and his stuff I don't think has been that great recently, but Phil Lord's and Chris Miller's stuff has been great, and yeah, I don't know. I think we're gonna hear something during Comic-Con. I think we're gonna hear a lot of DC news during Comic-Con.
I hope so. I heard that they're trying to ramp up production on a lot of their projects.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Lord and Chris Miller were back on the Flash project just because they met with DC, with Warner Brothers. I mean, it's really all just speculation still. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. Again, I think I think DC is going to be huge at Comic-Con this week. This month.
This next month?
This month. It's July.
Oh, it is July now. Holy shit. You're right. Okay. Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, this is slightly spoiler material, but it is worth discussing before the film. So if you want to go in completely fresh, go ahead and look at the time code in the episode description and skip ahead. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about the cast list that was released for Spider-Man Homecoming that reveals who some of the characters are.
I'm not even sure if I want to even listen to this because
too bad because I'm going to start speaking.
Because I didn't read those articles. I don't know anything about this. This will be a surprise to me.
Okay, so some surprises. Pepper Potts is in the movie.
Okay.
Gwyneth Paltrow. One of the most interesting things is Donald Glover is playing Aaron Davis, who in the comics is the Prowler.
Oh, I called it.
Which you called.
I called it.
Now, I thought that we were the first ones to ever make that claim.
Yeah.
So I went onto Reddit and was about to post, we were the first ones to get this correct and say that Donald Glover was playing the Prowler. Turns out we weren't. So we did reach that conclusion independently, but we weren't the first ones to reach that claim. But it is really cool that he's playing the Prowler. I think he's a perfect fit for it.
I wonder if he's going to get like his own spin-off film or something like that.
I don't know. Is he going to get his own spin-off film? Is he going to, in that new Sony cinematic universe, Spider-Man cinematic universe? I hope so.
I wonder if
honestly.
He's not going to appear as the Prowler in the film, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't even know if they're going to allude to it through Easter eggs or anything like that. But, I would love to see a Prowler film, honestly. I mean, he's not the most popular character.
He's a cool character, though.
He has a cool costume.
Yeah.
For sure. And he could hold his own film, I think. He doesn't need to have Spider-Man guest star in his film in order to have a film, basically. No,
unlike someone like, Black Cat or Venom, I think...
They're much more tied into Spider-Man's story.
I agree. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Who else we got here? It turns out that Zendaya is playing a character called Michelle. So...
I don't want to know that.
So there you go.
So she's not Mary Jane.
Oh, we're in spoiler territory right now, right?
Yeah.
So apparently there's a line at the end of the movie where she says, "Call me MJ." But MJ is not short for Mary Jane.
It's short for...
So I think it's more like a kind of like
Michelle.
a gag. It's like a gag for people who thought that she would be Mary Jane.
Okay.
So, but she's actually playing Michelle. I don't know. It might be a little bit confusing. We'll talk about it in the review next episode for sure. I assume that will come up. Jennifer Connelly is in the film.
What?
There's
like a brief second I was gonna say, but she's Betty Ross. What?
She's credited as Karen/Suit Lady, which makes me
Suit Lady.
Yeah, Suit Lady. It makes me think that she is doing the voice for Spider-Man's AI. That's my guess. Which would be interesting because her husband in real life did the voice of
Jarvis,
Iron Man's.
Huh.
So yeah, Paul Bettany did Jarvis. Jennifer Connelly does.
We've heard the voice of in the trailers.
We've heard a voice in the trailers. I think that was a temporary voice. That's my guess.
When I hear Suit Lady, I think like business suit.
No, I think Suit Lady. I think of like superhero suit.
I guess we'll see.
So, I almost forgot. I'm dumb. One of the big surprises here is that Mac Gargan is in the film, and he plays, I'm assuming, one of the Vulture's henchmen.
But who's Mac Gargan?
Mac Gargan.
Why does that sound familiar?
He is Scorpion.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So he's being played by Michael Mando. I'm not sure who the actor is.
I have no idea who that is.
But he is in the film. It's possible that they'll use him down the line as a villain. I love the Scorpion. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains.
Yeah, me too.
Or maybe they're...
How do you translate that to film, though? It's like the Rhino. Like, how do you translate the Rhino to film? They did a horrible job.
In the Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Yeah.
I thought they did an okay job.
It's like the only way you can do it, honestly.
I don't know. I heard rumors that Scorpion might be the villain in the Silver Sable Black Cat movie.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if that's going to come to fruition. It
has to be like a backpack.
That sounds like a rumor. Yeah, it would have to be
like a tentacle backpack.
Tentacle backpack.
It almost.
Why would it be a backpack though?
Because you can't have it coming out of his ass. It has to come out of his back.
But would he only have it as a backpack because he's playing into the Scorpion theme?
Yes. It's probably just a precursor. They probably use that to set up Dr. Octopus. Be like, oh, this backpack has 4 tentacles. I don't know.
It's not really a tentacle that the Scorpion has.
So they would have to do it that way.
But it's
you
similar.
Can't do a tail.
Like it's prehensile. It has a blade at the end of the tail.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, do the Scorpion and use him to set up Dr. Octopus. Because I want to see Dr. Octopus again.
Me too. If anything, from watching Spider-Man 2 again.
He's my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, I want to see him again. But yeah, I think that was the last surprise from the cast list. Stan Lee is going to be in the movie. But
of course,
his character actually has a name. It's Gary. So we'll see what Gary gets up to.
Has he been Gary the whole time? I thought he was in space. What's going on here?
I don't know. We'll see. In related Spider-Man movie news, actually Venom movie news, it's been confirmed that Eddie Brock will be facing off against Carnage.
Awesome.
Which is what you called a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
You're just calling shit, man.
I'm awesome.
Prowler, Carnage.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
This is exciting.
It needs to be rated R now.
It needs
to be rated R.
Yeah, it should be rated R. I think it's a good move because I don't think Carnage would ever make an appearance in the mainstream Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's kind of good that he's making his appearance in this kind of like offshoot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of how I'm defining Sony's Spider-Man universe.
Yeah.
It's like an offshoot. Who do you want to play Carnage?
I don't know. Jackie Earle Haley, maybe?
He would be great. That would be fantastic. He looks almost exactly like Cletus Cassidy from the comics, at least
because when I think of Cletus Cassidy, I always kind of think of like Rorschach, you know?
Yeah, they could be brothers.
Yeah.
The way they look. I also thought Michael C. Hall might be really good.
Ooh, Dexter.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
It has to be somebody who's as good as
Tom Hardy.
Yeah,
it might be Michael C. Hall. I mean, Jackie Earle Haley is good too. But in terms of like just like doing like a mirror of Tom Hardy, which like a dark mirror, like Carnage is of Venom, and of course Venom is a dark mirror of Spider-Man. But you know, Michael C. Hall, I like that. It's a good choice.
Yeah, and they're both kind of used to doing more mature work.
Yeah.
Will you be disappointed if this is not rated R, being that it's Carnage? Like, can you do Carnage justice?
No.
Without an R rating.
Yeah, it needs to be R rated.
If this movie comes out to be PG-13,
it should be a horror film.
It's going to be a disappointment.
It needs to be like a horror film.
Yeah. Did you ever see the short film? It's called Truth in Journalism, and it's kind of there was an old rated R movie. Actually, I think it was unrated. It was a French film. It was like a faux documentary. It was one of the first mockumentaries. It was like a faux documentary of a serial killer. Mm-hmm. And it was shot in black and white and stuff. And it's this camera crew goes around and basically films this serial killer doing his things. They took that movie as inspiration for this movie, Truth in Journalism. So they follow around this really sleazy guy as he goes around doing his sleazy things. If you haven't watched it, it's really good. It actually has decent special effects for a fan film as well, with the whole Venom suit. We'll watch it after this. But if you haven't seen Truth in Journalism, go ahead and watch that. And that's a horror film, and I think that's very much in the vein of what they should do here.
Yeah, because I mean that's what Marvel has been trying to. They're trying to turn individual films into like separate sort of like genre homages. I guess like Ant-Man was a heist film.
Captain America: Winter Soldier was like a spy thriller
film, and then Guardians of the Galaxy was like a space opera. They don't have anything they can really do with horror, So this should be that. And I know it's not really part of the MCU, but it's like tied to it. And there's been some like really confusing, like back and forth between what is her name, Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige as to whether or not it is part of the universe.
Right.
And I think they just kind of determined like it is, but the characters aren't going to overlap in any way or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Like it's part of the same universe, but they're not going to visit each other's movies.
It's almost like, I guess it's almost like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that, or the Netflix shows.
Kind of like that. It's in universe, but they don't see each other ever.
Unless it's really successful, then they will.
Yeah. So the movie that I was talking about, Truth in Journalism, the producer of that movie was actually at one point in talks to direct this Venom movie before it went to Ruben Fleischer, who obviously directed Zombieland. So I think they got the tone right here. I think the fact that they're going Carnage, the fact that they got Tom Hardy, I think it's going to be good. All good things so far. I'm more excited for this than I am Inhumans now, which is so bizarre. Because I remember when we were first talking about this Venom spin-off movie, I hated it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But moving on, Watchmen TV series.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so Damon Lindelof. Lindelof? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I think it's Lindelof.
Lindelof. He's currently the showrunner for a series that just ended on HBO called The Leftovers. Now, I haven't seen that because it looks super depressing, and I didn't.
It looks really good though.
It looks good. And I hear great things about it. Everyone who sees it is like, "Oh, it's so good. You need to watch it." And I'm like, I don't want to watch it alone because I just will be depressed. I'll just be driving in the car with my wife who hasn't seen it. I'll just be like, "Why does any of this matter?" I don't know. But I hear fantastic things, which is why I'm pretty excited at the fact that he is developing a Watchmen TV series for HBO. Initially, I was a little kind of almost hurt because this seems like really bad timing because Zack Snyder did Watchmen and now the Watchmen movie, and now he can't. They're remaking his work. But then I learned that actually Zack Snyder was originally attached as a producer to this, and I learned that Damon Lindelof is a really big fan of Zack Snyder's film, so that's encouraging. And now. Yeah. Now with all the success that superheroes have been having on television with Legion, with Preacher
and the Netflix shows
and The Walking Dead, all these cable networks are having these finding real success in these comic book properties. I think it's high time that HBO, sort of jumped on board that, considering the fact that Warner Brothers owns HBO and they also own DC. I think this is a perfect home for it. Watchmen as a serialized episodic story is it's more fitting as a television series.
I agree. I think, don't get me wrong, this story would be best served as a series as opposed to the 2-hour film that we got.
Yeah.
That being said, what can this do that the super ultimate cut of Zack Snyder's movie didn't do?
That's a fantastic question.
I feel because Zack Snyder stuck so closely to the graphic novel, that it's gonna feel. I feel like it's gonna feel like a rehash.
And it may, but honestly, so few people saw Watchmen. I think it was profitable in the long run, but the film only made $100 million domestic. So I think there's more people watch Game of Thrones than have seen Watchmen. So Game of Thrones only has 15 episodes left, so they're going to need something to keep the momentum. And I think this is sort of the perfect property to do that with. It's going to put Watchmen in the limelight, and I think people will be interested in watching it. I hope. I think. I pray.
I think it'll be interesting because you actually get to go into all the the small stories that were in the gutter of the end of book pages.
Yeah.
And what was the pirate thing called? Black
Freighter. Tales from Black Freighter. Yeah.
You'll be able to show that and stuff like that. And that's cool.
Yeah.
But again, that's all been done.
Sort of. Yeah. I really think they're really going to flesh out the property. DC seems really intent on fleshing out the Watchmen property. They did before Watchmen. None of that has been on screen. You could tie into that, and now they're bringing Watchmen to the DC Comics universe. They probably won't touch on that, but I don't know. There's other avenues to explore. I think they've sort of improved upon Game of Thrones. According to me, I've read some of the Game of Thrones books, so I think. We've in our Watchmen review, we said that it's almost an improvement upon the book in some areas.
Yeah,
and I think, just living at HBO, the HBO is kind of where this television renaissance sort of started. I feel with True Detective, with Game of Thrones, films are almost better served as long content television series because the production values are so high right now.
Yeah.
I think there's opportunity to possibly improve upon the story, which sounds super blasphemous coming out of my mouth right now. Because ultimately, you say, Watchmen is better served as a television series than a movie, and you're probably right. But the truth is, it's better served as a comic in the end. It's a perfect. it was the perfect story for the medium. That does something with the panels and everything that other comics, it was like the best use of the medium to tell that story. I'm excited. I'm excited for this, for sure.
Yeah, I just hope they don't introduce like a lot of like unnecessary plot threads. I guess
I have confidence. I have the utmost confidence in HBO.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this as well. I guess I'm also really attached to the cast of Snyder's movie. Like, I don't know if you could get a better Rorschach than Jackie Earle Haley. I almost said Haley Joel Osment again. I don't know why. So, I mean, things like that, it'll be good, though. It'll be good.
I'm excited that people are going to watch it. It's on HBO, and that gets me happy because, we'll finally be able to talk to people about, stuff, things like Watchmen, and how many people saw the movie, how many people liked the movie, Yeah.
If you enjoy Watchmen and you haven't listened to our review of the Watchmen film, absolutely do that. It's like an hour and a half review, 2-hour review, but I think we discover a lot of interesting things about it as we talk about it.
Yeah, I occasionally listen to that review again just when I want to have my mind blown. That sounds very self-serving, but no, we get super deep and super philosophical.
Yeah, it's not just us talking. We have a guest on that episode as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. Tell us about the Titans TV character breakdowns.
Yeah, so there was some casting sheets that came out, and they have alternative names on there. So, but it's very clearly, Nightwing, Raven, Starfire, Beast Boy. I think one of the most interesting things is that so we don't know for sure. In the synopsis for the show, we know that Dick Grayson is in the show. We know that Starfire and Raven are in the show. But we don't know anyone else because no one else is mentioned in the synopsis because they say it's like, a fearless new band of heroes that includes Starfire, Raven, and others. And when they mention Dick Grayson, they don't give his superhero name. But it seems like based off of this casting, sort of tidbit, that it's going to be Nightwing. Because Dick Grayson will be working as a cop, and he worked as a Bloodhaven cop while he was Nightwing during his Nightwing tenure. And the casting tidbits are pretty interesting. I think this will be a good show. The one for Nightwing is perfect. It describes him as being very charming, but also when he's provoked, he's lethal. And he fights with this commitment, but with the grace of a dancer. It's a good description of who Nightwing is.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones are kind of, I think they're good interpretations possibly for this live action series is appearing on DC's new their Netflix.
Right.
That's coming out.
It's their direct streaming service.
Yeah, I don't know if it has a name yet, DC
streaming.
Direct or streaming. I don't know. I'm sure they'll have a name for it later on, but it's appearing on that. So for Raven, they describe her as this teenage, kind of troubled, bullied, scared kind of character, and she's a loner who wears a hoodie and is plagued by nightmares. It seems very. I guess I want to say CW, but that makes sense because the showrunner of this show is also the one who does the CW shows.
Right.
So to have this sort of angsty character, and Raven should be dripping in angst, honestly. Yeah. Yep. So it suits her. Then the description for Starfire is she's tall and incredibly beautiful, mysterious and also really lethal, really dangerous. And
she has to be tall.
She definitely has to be
taller. Starfire is supposed to be super tall, right?
Yeah. It also describes that her beauty is supposed to be borderline inhuman. She's an alien, so of course that makes sense. I expect she'll be wearing very little clothing in the show, just because
that's what Starfire does.
Character. That's the character. That's her alien.
They'll probably give her a gold skin color, is what I'm thinking.
maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if orangey. Let's say orangey. I'm thinking more like a tanned orange, like Donald Trump, more than gold. More Donald Trump than Aisha. Let's say that.
Okay. All right.
Which sounds weird to say. And then the last one, it describes Beast Boy. It says that they want an Asian preference. Now, for Raven and Starfire, it was like open ethnicity, which is pretty cool. Seems like this is going to be a diverse cast.
Yeah.
For Beast Boy, it says that, they want an Asian in the role, and they're describing him as a thief, but a humorous one. I guess that's fitting. I've never really seen Beast Boy as a thief. I don't think he has a background as a thief. He started off in the Doom Patrol.
Not many animals have opposable thumbs. I don't know how.
Well, he could be like a rat or a bird. I don't know, just sneak into places. He's all about stealth, kind of. I see him being like their stealth figure, maybe.
Over Nightwing?
And Raven. Yeah, now that I say that, I'm like, maybe you're wrong, Jonathan. I don't know. It's interesting. All you need is Cyborg, and you'll have like the original like cartoon cast.
Are you disappointed that Cyborg's not going to be in this?
No. I mean, the reason he's not in there is because he's in the Justice League movie, and as I mentioned in our last episode, I think it's he works on the Justice League team. I think he sort of graduated above the Titans, and I think the Justice League is where he belongs, as opposed to someone like Martian Manhunter. He brings diversity to the cast. He brings like this technological, modern kind of edge. You could tell stories that you couldn't tell without him there. Yeah. So
I'm a little concerned about the Nightwing casting, just because Nightwing's going to get his own solo film directed by Chris McKay. We're going to see Dick Grayson in the DC Cinematic Universe, extended universe, and how that's going to compete with this casting is going to,
Well, I mean, it's going
to feel like the Two Flashes all over again.
Yeah, it's the Two Flashes, exactly. We'll see how that goes.
Which you have less of a problem with than I do, but...
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it is what it is.
It feels like a competition, though. It's like, who's going to be better? I don't know. It feels like needless competition among yourself. And somebody's going to get hurt along the way.
I heard it best described as really it's sort of like where it comes into conflict is when like grandparents are buying toys. It's like, oh, my grandchild likes the Flash, so I'm going to buy him this action figure. And the grandparent buys, the movie version when the kid really likes the TV show.
So it's an issue. It's a merchandising issue.
It's a merchandising issue. Yeah. And I think, I don't know how much farther it extends past that.
That's true. I didn't even think about that, honestly. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that does it. Yeah, I think that does it for the news. Let's go ahead and get into the review. We'll get Maggie on the line, and we'll go ahead and review Spider-Man 2. Super excited about this one. So let's get into it. All right, welcome back. We are back with our special guest, Maggie, who is one of the biggest Spider-Man fans that I know of. In my head, I always call her Spider-Mag.
Spider-Mag.
Wow, what a compliment.
You might remember her from our Comic-Con episode last year. And she's living out in LA right now, working in the entertainment scene down there. And we're always super excited to have you. Are you going to Comic-Con this year, Maggie?
I am indeed. I can't wait. It's like 2 weeks away. 3 weeks.
The Denver Comic-Con is actually going on right now.
And I forgot about it.
Just like you see people in like weird costumes at the bus stop. It's kind of funny.
No,
it was the best.
Yeah, I was picking Jonathan up and we were driving to my house, and there were these people that were wearing like masquerade masks. Like
it was like Eyes Wide Shut. I was like, "What are you supposed to be?"
Yeah, I was like,
"This is Comic-Con. This is Comic-Con."
Yeah, people will dress up like anything. It doesn't have to be anything specific.
Yeah, pretty
just
much.
Whatever's in their closet.
They'll just wear their weird, freaky fetish costume that they have up in their closet.
There's one time a year you can bust that out.
Yeah, right. Maybe two.
So we're reviewing Spider-Man 2, and we're talking about this movie as opposed to any of the other Spider-Man movies because the film is drawing a lot of comparisons to the new Spider-Man Homecoming film that comes out in a few days.
Yeah, I've seen it. Like, I haven't read any reviews yet, but just like snippets of reviews have said, it's like the best Spider-Man film since Amazing Spider-Man, or since Spider-Man 2. I'm going to be saying Amazing Spider-Man 2 a lot. I need to not do that. But no, it is like, I think it's the gold standard for which to judge other Spider-Man films by.
Yes. Yeah, it'll serve as a good reference point when we see the film next week in our next review to kind of compare the two and see exactly which one is better. I watched the movie again yesterday for the first time in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. I think a vast majority of it still holds up, even though it was made 13 years ago.
I was actually surprised.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Even the CGI. Like, I remember because Joseph and we watched it together. And I was like, wow, the CGI, it holds up pretty well. And Joseph was like, yeah, it's just as good as Wonder Woman's. Or Wonder Woman's is just as good as that.
It does actually hold up pretty well.
Yeah.
The CGI, at least, for 2004?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they spent some good money on it back in the day.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
My thoughts were that I thought that the second act was a little long, and some of the acting was a little caricature-ish and melodramatic. But
Yes.
Absolutely, hands down, the best ending, the best last 5 minutes of any superhero film to date, I think.
Maybe. Yeah. Is this your favorite Spider-Man movie, Maggie?
I go back and forth. I think this is a fantastic Spider-Man movie. It's one of my 2 favorite Spider-Man movies. Mm-hmm. The other, of course, being Spider-Man 3. Just kidding.
All right, this review's over.
Yeah, it's like you can't trust anything I say. I'm going to be one of those bloggers who writes like, in defense of Spider-Man 3.
The contrarian.
Yes. No, this is a great Spider-Man movie. And like you said, I think the last 5 minutes are... I was watching the whole movie and I had an interesting experience watching it this time around. I think I saw it like 10 times when it came out in theaters. Mm-hmm. It was like my happy place. And even like no matter what I think about everything else in the movie, the last 5 minutes is just golden. Like it's so good.
I think the reason the ending is so good is because it's cathartic. We spend so much of this film just being down in the gutter with...
Oh my gosh.
Peter. We see he goes through the ringer so much.
Tough.
And like just when you think it couldn't get worse for him, it gets so much worse. And I remember thinking, God, this movie is so depressing.
I remember thinking that the first time I saw it in the theaters, just like even from the first, 15 minutes of the film when he's just like sitting there picking up his papers and he gets knocked in the head by backpacks, not once, but twice. I'm just like, oh geez, dude. Poor guy.
Or just when he's at the party and there's no snacks, like he can't seem to get a drink or a snack.
Right.
It's just Peter Parker, this is what's so great about Spider-Man 2 is that Peter Parker's a guy who can't catch a break no matter how hard he tries.
Yeah.
And I think they capture that really well throughout the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like when he's Peter Parker, he can't catch a break, and then when he's Spider-Man, like even in this movie, like, he has trouble being Spider-Man just because of, his sickness or whatever it was going on. But there was less Spider-Man like towards the beginning of the film than I remember. Like I remember there being a lot more Spider-Man when I first saw this, but now when I saw it yesterday, like Spider-Man, he makes an appearance like pretty early with the pizza delivery scene, but after that, like it takes a while for him to show up again.
Yeah, there's only 3 Spider-Man set pieces really. There's the bank and the train and then the end. Mm-hmm. And it's like for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, there's also the first Dr. Octopus experiment where he shows up and pulls the plug.
Yeah,
that's right. He shows up there too.
They fight like a total of 4 times in this film. I think that's I don't mind though because Dr. Octopus is such a fantastic villain.
He is my favorite Spider-Man villain.
This is a perfect portrayal of Dr. Octopus. It's better than the comics because in the comics he's like not as layered or dynamic as he is in the movie.
They sort of have like the same arc, which I thought was like really interesting. It's like they both have this dream. Like for Dr. Octopus, it's like this experiment, this clean energy, like power source fusion. And Spider-Man's dream is, being with Mary Jane and having a normal life. And they touch on this in the film, like specifically Aunt May, when she's talking about, sometimes you have to give up on your dreams to make the world a better place.
Yeah. I mean, here's why Spider-Man 2 is the quintessential Spider-Man movie, is because it captures that with great power comes great responsibility so well.
Yes,
it's
sure.
the themes of
For
like
sure.
choice and responsibility and sacrifice.
Sacrifice, yeah.
The whole, I've been drawn to Spider-Man because of that, like Peter Parker as a character. Like Spider-Man's awesome with like swinging webs and stuff like that. But the character of Peter Parker is unlike any other superhero, in that like it really sucks to be a superhero. It's ruining his life.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do the right thing. And he wants to be with Mary Jane, and he wants to get good grades in college, and he wants a normal life. And the struggle of that and the toll that being Spider-Man is taking on him is done really well in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. I think we mentioned this like early in the podcast, one of our first episodes. Like I like to say that like all superheroes are either like based on Superman or Batman. But of course, when I said that, Joseph brought up, "Oh, what about Spider-Man?" I was like, that's like he's like the one superhero that I can think of that is just like not unlike any other superhero.
Yeah.
He's like his own thing.
Well, and it's extremely relatable. Like I was watching it last night, and everybody has the struggle of doing the right thing or like giving up something for the sake of, something greater.
Yeah.
And I'm watching, I'm like, this is like a little too close to home. And I think everybody feels that way about something. And what I love about Spider-Man 2 is that it does that in multiple themes. So you've got Peter Parker who wants to be Spider-Man, but then you also have Octavius talking about how intelligence is also a gift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that you have to be responsible with that as well. And that's, the thing that draws me, and I think all of us, to comic books is the fantastic and the extraordinary as a way to present these like universal themes of our lives. Like I look at Spider-Man and his choices and his sacrifice and his life, and it's a really fun way to tell the message, which is basically summed up in Aunt May's speech, where she says like, sometimes in order to do what's right, we have to be steady.
Yeah, there are all these sort of different ways to try to get the same message to him, that with great power comes great responsibility. The message that Otto says, where he talks about intelligence being a privilege to serve mankind, it's almost the same message.
Yeah.
But yeah, life definitely treats Peter like a punching bag, but we never see him get like depressed. Most of his inward struggle manifests outwardly in the loss of his powers, but we still see him hang in there despite everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gives this film so much heart, is because we've all had our low points in life that feel like what he's going through. And to see him come out of it shining and with everything that he's ever wanted at the end, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I always walk away
and
from
I
this
think to the last 5 minutes when Mary Jane says, "Isn't it time somebody saved your life?"
That is such a
very
great
cathartic,
line.
like you said, because it's like, yes, like it's true. Like he needs somebody too.
Well, like this time, again, it's been like years and years, probably close to a decade since I've seen this film. And like just watching it this time, I realized that like Spider-Man, like you said, is super relatable. I think it sort of like captures the fantasy that every young man has, that like, oh, he's in love with this girl, but she doesn't notice him, or she doesn't love him. And he just wishes he was greater than he is. And if only he could tell her that he's greater. And in someone like Clark Kent's or Peter Parker's case, that's like, literally the fact. He is the super person, the superhuman. And at the end, like, he finally gets to tell her. He finally gets to like fulfill that wish that every young guy has, that he, you know, can finally reveal to the woman he loves that hey, I'm extraordinary. Notice me, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about how this franchise compares to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise for a little bit in terms of the actors. I've gotten so used to Andrew Garfield's version of the character that it was like surprising again for me to see Tobey Maguire's version and Sam Raimi's version of the character. I always thought that Tobey Maguire came off as incredibly earnest and sincere in his performance, but it is a vastly different Peter Parker from Andrew Garfield's and possibly Tom Holland's. What do you think of the character?
These are three very different interpretations of Peter Parker, for sure. Like, even just from the trailers and from Tom Holland in Civil War. I mean, watching Spider-Man 2 after... So I really enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man. And I absolutely love The Amazing Spider-Man 2. When it came out, I was like, that's my favorite Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. And then going back and watching Spider-Man 2, that's also my favorite Spider-Man movie. Here's the thing. All of these movies have Spider-Man in them, so I'm going to love them no matter what. But I think The Amazing Spider-Man has a different kind of heart to it. I think the casting, the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone is really palpable. Mm-hmm. And I connected a lot more with the character of Peter Parker through Andrew Garfield than I did with Tobey Maguire. And I think it has a lot to do with the casting choices and the directing. I think the complaint that I have about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is it often is very melodramatic. Yeah. And it has a lot of tonal problems. Like, they're taking sort of the humor of Amazing Spider-Man comics from the 60s. It's like a lot of really cheesy, almost like dad jokes, like throughout the movie.
Yeah. Just the scene with like raindrops are falling on my head.
Oh my gosh. Like, how is that scene in a movie? It's crazy. I'm watching it, I'm like, this is actually happening. And it was like, I remember seeing it for the first time. I'm like, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't quite land with the, they're doing a lot with the characters, and you feel the struggle of Peter Parker, but then they have these really weird, like, goofy light moments. And sometimes I'm like, pick a tone that you're going to go with. Even though I wouldn't want it to be like, I like Spider-Man 2 because it's super fun to watch. It doesn't have to be really dark, you know, like they give that lightness to it, which makes it really relatable and heartfelt and really fun to watch. But I would rather, the kind of humor that should be in Spider-Man is he doesn't do any of the wisecracking in the Raimi trilogy. He's a little whiny, and almost too earnest. Like, it's like he's not having fun being Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's no sarcasm there.
Yeah.
I think that the portrayal of Peter Parker in The Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 was closer to the comics than what this is. This is kind of Raimi's own version of the character.
Even with Peter Parker, do you think? Because I think that the character of Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man movies was a little bit more, or Peter Parker, I should say, a little bit more hipster. He was hipster than he is in the comics. He's a little bit more cool, you know? He doesn't, wear the glasses. Well, he does, but...
Yeah, but he still had that wit and that, like, sarcastic attitude kind of that suits the character more. He was just updated to the modern day. That's why I don't think he was hipster. I just think he was hip. I don't know.
It's interesting. I will say that I don't think either film franchise has really hit everything on the head. Like, there's strengths to the Raimi trilogy, and then there's strengths to the Amazing Spider-Man movies in the characters of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. It's like, I have like a blend of both of them that I would love to see that would be the perfect Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I like Tobey Maguire is really, he's like genuine and also super nerdy, and not in like a cool nerdy way, but like he's definitely like the science geek, and they play that really well with Peter Parker. Like Tobey Maguire is attractive, but not movie star, like not like A-list. Like he's definitely, you look at him when he's walking down the street and you're like, oh, there's like the science nerd Peter Parker. So I think they do that really well.
Yeah, Tobey Maguire does have an unfortunate case of Tobey Maguire face.
He does.
I just would think of the scene where he's like trying to regain his power and he's like running in slow motion to jump across the building, and it's just like, oh dude, you look like an 80-year-old woman.
Oh man, when at the very end, I mean, the gifs that have been made of him screaming no after the wall's about to fall on Mary Jane, it's just like, it's too much. But I really liked Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. I think he is not as like nerdy, but I think he's really awkward in his own way. And there's like a gentleness and quietness about him, of him kind of being a loner. And yeah, he's just very, I think it's just like a great casting choice. I think Andrew Garfield is a great actor, and I think he plays well with Emma Stone.
Yeah, I feel like Andrew Garfield is how like comic book readers, he played Peter Parker the way comic book readers see themselves, as opposed to like Tobey Maguire played Peter Parker as like how other people see comic book readers, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
I think what Mark Webb said was interesting is that Peter Parker in the comics was kind of a bookworm, kind of a science nerd who like read comic books. And at the time, comic books were not cool. Comic books were like what the loser guys did.
Yeah.
And so when approaching The Amazing Spider-Man, Mark Webb thought that Peter Parker couldn't be a comic book nerd because now it's super cool. Like everybody with all the Marvel movies and everything, even people who aren't really familiar with the comics are walking around wearing Captain America t-shirts.
Yeah.
So they were trying to find other ways for him to be kind of an outcast.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, kind of a different approach to it. I don't think skateboarding was the best choice. like Peter Parker skateboarding to Coldplay was just an interesting choice.
That part didn't really rub me the right way with the extreme skateboarding aspect of The Amazing Spider-Man. I think they handled the discovery of his powers and him testing it out, everything, better in the Raimi trilogy than they did in the Amazing Spider-Man duo.
Yeah. Probably just the Spider-Man purist inside of me, but the fact that Tobey Maguire's webs just like come out of his wrist as opposed to the wristbands that he has really bothers me. And the way that they tried to do it in Spider-Man 2, where he's just like losing his powers, and that's why he can't spin his webs, as opposed to being like out of his web cartridges. I think it's just and the wrist webs speak so much to his inventive nature. Like I love in Amazing Spider-Man how Peter's like testing it out and he's making it, and like he's using his science skills to become Spider-Man.
Yeah, he has like a scientific edge for sure, a gadgetry edge.
Yeah. As far as Mary Jane goes, I was never the hugest fan of Kirsten Dunst in the role. I liked her more in the first movie than kind of what she became in the second two movies.
She became mean. She was mean.
Yeah. Not my Mary Jane.
Kirsten
Dunst would never be my Mary Jane.
I do think that she gave the most unique and sincere delivery of the Go Get 'em Tiger line, or just saying those lines that she said at the end. I thought were not really what I was expecting, and they have good chemistry in that last scene, I think. So
yeah,
she kind of redeems herself in my eyes in that last scene.
Yeah, I think that was the only time, and I think it's another reason why I love the last scene is it's the only time where it's a genuine, like, true to the character of Mary Jane.
Yes,
it's this really confident, get him tiger that that is just non-existent throughout the first and the second movies.
Yeah,
like I like Kirsten Dunst. I think she's she's great in a lot of things. I don't necessarily think that it's her fault. She just wasn't a good choice for Mary Jane.
I think
And the character that she plays is not Mary Jane.
The character wasn't written that well. Who wrote Spider-Man 2? I know it was like Michael Cabone. I forgot all the different writers.
The guy, I'm trying to remember, the guy who ended up getting credit didn't do a lot of the writing for it.
Really?
It was like a team effort.
Yeah.
I know the guys who did Smallville, the Smallville series, also did like a pass at the script.
Goff and
I
Miller.
think those.
Yeah. But I just feel like she wasn't written that well. Like, at the beginning of the film, she's, interested in Peter, and then he misses her play, so then she just like writes him off. And like 2 days later, after he misses her play, she's like really pissed off at him and accepts a marriage proposal. It just, I feel like she was written really mean.
Hey, she's got to do her, He did spurn her in the last movie. I mean, he reluctantly spurned her, but what is she supposed to do with her life,
I suppose.
I don't fault her for that. It's just, it's not the character of Mary Jane, really, in terms of how she interacts with people.
Yeah. Mary Jane should be very, very confident. Like, I think it would have made sense for Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 to spurn him the way that she did if she had been truer to the character of Mary Jane, who just exudes confidence, whether she has it or not. And was kind of like, I mean, the first appearance of Mary Jane in the comics is he opens the door and she's like, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot."
Yeah.
Like Mary Jane has very little time for Peter Parker, even though they genuinely like especially as they're dating, and then they genuinely love each other, they fall in love, and they have this amazing romance. But I think making Mary Jane the insecure girl next door was like kind of a relatable choice, but it wasn't the
right choice.
Like, I would like to see a Mary Jane who's like who's the redhead from Mad Men?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Hendricks?
Christina Hendricks?
Christina Hendricks.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, she's too old, but like that type of Mary Jane, very
Absolutely.
almost, like
I
very
agree.
powerful.
Yeah.
I think almost Emma Stone was a better representation of Mary Jane than Kirsten Dunst.
Emma Stone was such a great Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
She was spot on Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, that was a sad moment in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think they handled that the death of Gwen Stacy. They handled that so well in that movie. It's just I had a slow clap for them.
I understand.
I love that they went there. Like
Yeah.
when I heard that they cast Gwen Stacy for Amazing Spider-Man, I thought immediately. I thought at some point they were going to have to kill her, and
Right.
if they don't, then they're
They're not being.
it's not a Spider-Man movie. They're not being true to the comics.
They're not taking the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought the same exact thing.
I would like to see, I think the best case scenario for a Spider-Man movie would be the story and the struggle of Spider-Man 2, everything that they do, all the themes of sacrifice and choice and responsibility, mixed with the casting and the heart and the chemistry of Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I absolutely agree with that.
Because and the universe of Amazing Spider-Man is pretty awesome too, like the way that they handle Oscorp and just kind of where they place Spider-Man in New York is pretty great too.
Yeah. It's been revealed as to whether, because they had the Spider-Man Homecoming premiere like a few days ago. So it's been leaked online whether or not Zendaya is playing Mary Jane or not, because that's the rumor. I haven't looked at it yet.
No spoilers.
But, no, I'm not. I don't know the spoiler. I've been avoiding it. So
I've been avoiding all the reviews and the spoilers.
Yeah,
Just gonna go in pretty blind.
Yeah, that's my goal.
It's just better to do it that way. I used to read
Yeah.
all the spoilers I could, and then I think somewhere along the way, I just my first viewing of the films just became so unenjoyable because I came in with all my preconceived notions and pre-knowledge and everything, and it's just I avoid most of that stuff now, except for what we have to discuss on the podcast. But
Yeah, makes sense.
Going back to the acting, one of the points that you made, Maggie, was that the acting was a little bit melodramatic. I felt that was especially the case with the film's villains, both Alfred Molina and James Franco. But if anyone could pull it off... Huh?
James Franco was in this movie.
Yeah, he was just horrible. I don't remember him being that horrible. His delivery was just not on at all.
He was so fresh.
Yeah.
I don't know. But he didn't quite pull it off, but I think Alfred Molina did. I think if anyone could pull it off, you got to hand it to a presence like Alfred Molina. He's just such a great actor. I remember the first time I saw him, I think it was at a Comic-Con way back in the day. I think 2003 San Diego Comic-Con. They released the first poster of Doc Ock, and it was kind of that like over-the-shoulder kind of look with the tentacles on his back. Yeah. It was just so cool. And the design of the tentacles was so good, I think.
Yeah, in the comics they're sort of like these
fantastic.
Like metal tubes.
Yeah.
But in this one they're like, they have like a form to them. They look more like a actual like octopus kind of arm. Like there's like a muscle kind of like structure to them.
Like industrial. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just like these spinal cords that just, branch off from him. He's such a great villain.
He's such a great... It's super cool, just like the design, the effects, and him as a character and what he's trying to do. I think had it been a different villain or a different portrayal of it, this movie would not have been what it is.
Yeah, definitely. You almost have to think, though, that he's trying to make a scientific breakthrough in fusion, but the arms themselves are almost a scientific breakthrough enough, Like, he could probably win the Nobel for that.
Yeah.
That the arms were actually just a way for him to do something else. But, that in themselves is worth a Nobel Prize, like you said.
Right. I know, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, really? You're, like, using these arms to control a sun? Shouldn't that thing be behind, like, some kind of, like, protective, like, barrier? Shouldn't you, I don't know, not be doing it this way?
This doesn't seem safe.
No, at all. And he's just like wearing like a leotard as he's doing it, like no protective gear or anything. I'm just going to stand in front of a sign.
Just like an audience of people.
Yeah, poke at him with my arms. And like the arms are really just to like push in like solar flares. I don't know. The reasoning behind the arms is still sketchy to me, but the arms themselves are spectacular. I want them. I want those arms. Like,
me too.
I would almost want those arms more than like Spider-Man's powers. Just to like crawl across walls and stuff like that. They're just really cool.
I don't know. I want Spider-Man's powers always.
Yeah, I'd take Spider-Man's
just to
powers.
swing around.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't, like I said, I don't think Sam Raimi was the best choice for as a director for Spider-Man movies, just for like tonally and other things. But I will say that except for the scene where Doc Ock wakes up in the hospital,
yes,
is such a great scene. Like I think that is perfect. Like Sam Raimi's pulling his Evil Dead like horror background and making this really intense.
I had forgotten about that scene. I completely forgot about that scene when we were watching it again yesterday, and I was like, "Oh yeah, the Evil Dead scene, so good." It was so creepy, and the chainsaw reference and everything like that.
Nice foreshadowing.
The fingernails on the ground. It's awesome.
I love this.
Just over the top.
But what's weird, and that's the thing. It's like the movie doesn't seem consistent. It's like all of a sudden we have an Evil Dead scene, and then like 30 minutes later, it's the raindrops are falling on my head moment.
If that, yeah.
It's kind of just like whatever scene it is enclosed in itself, and the movie's like a string out of scenes that are whatever tone they want to be.
Yeah, it's pretty encapsulated kind of structure.
But still fun to watch.
Yeah. I think part of what adds to that encapsulation is are the characters of New York. I think in the Raimi films you have all these just wild characters that interact with Spider-Man along the way. Like sometimes those moments can be distracting. Sometimes they're fun to watch. I think the only moment that was distracting in this film was the train scene, where I was like, you probably should have got some different actors for those New Yorker characters. But they did have a nice selection of up and comers in this film. They had Asif Madhvi, who is the Indian Daily Show correspondent.
Oh, the pizza guy at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had Donnell Rawlings, who's Ashley Larry in the ShDEsI Show.
That's right. He just stole that guy's pizzas.
That's right.
Yeah. Zoe Deschanel's sister, Emily Deschanel, I think her name is.
Emily Deschanel?
Yeah, she's from Bones.
Was she the girl behind the counter?
Yeah.
Yes. Who wouldn't pay for the pizzas? That was her.
That's crazy. What a great opening, by the way. Just the whole Spider-Man having to deliver pizzas. And I'm actually, based on all the billboards that I see around town, like with Spider-Man kind of like chilling out, listening to music in a hammock of a web that he's made and that type of thing. I'm looking forward to hopefully some stuff like that in Homecoming.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Joel McHale was in this film.
That's right.
That's right. He was what's his name? He's like a stand-up comedian, Hal something. He was the guy in the elevator who was like cool Spider-Man suit.
Yeah. He was on I Love the 80s all the time. I
forgot his name. Yeah, he was the best on I Love the 80s.
That was a good scene too. And
that's the best scene. I just remember cracking up so hard the first time I saw this in the theaters at that scene. I could not stop laughing. Such a Spider-Man moment.
It's a really funny movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Like sometimes it gets too cheesy and eye-rolly, but some parts are just really funny.
Yeah, it's hit or miss, but when it hits, it's done well. You know who's in this film that I never saw until yesterday? Was Phil Lamar. Do you know who that is? He's a voice actor. He does
the Green Lantern,
Samurai Jack. He was on Mad TV. He was the UPS guy.
He's the guy who got his head blown off in Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Who is he in Spider-Man?
He is standing just to Tobey Maguire's left-hand side as he's stopping the train on the tracks as it's going out of control, and he's shooting the webs.
Oh, interesting.
He helps, his face is right next to Spider-Man's face at that moment, and I just never saw it.
That's crazy.
It blew my mind, the fact that I never saw him. But yeah, he's a huge comic book guy. He's done a lot of voices in the Spider-Man cartoons and a lot of DC cartoons as well. So that's always interesting.
One, of course, Bruce Campbell making his appearance in all the movies. Did you hear that they wanted him to be Mysterio if they'd made a fourth one? Like the reveal would be that he's been Mysterio the whole time.
Yeah, it was like Mysterio and was the Lizard, because Kurt Connors is in this film.
No, the Spider-Man drinking game is take a drink every time you see a plant that never pays off, like Dr. Connors or like Elizabeth Banks as Betty Brant.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah, that was interesting.
Just because.
I never knew who Betty Banks was, Elizabeth Banks was back then, but now when looking back on it, yeah, you're definitely right. It's like a who's who of like up and comers. That's funny.
Yeah. There was also a Doctor Strange reference in this movie, which my wife never understood until like she was pointing it out to me. She was like, "Hey, he just mentioned Doctor Strange." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I recognized that the first time I saw the movie." But now everybody knows who
it's
Doctor
great,
Strange is.
but it's taken.
J.K. Simmons, oh man.
Doc.
There's an amazing...
There's a reason why the character has not shown up in a Spidey film since this series ended. It's because J.K. Simmons owns that role.
Yes, that is perfect. Like, honestly, I when I heard that maybe the Amazing Spider-Man was going to do Jameson, I was like, just get J.K. Simmons again. Yeah. Like, nobody's going to be upset about it.
Exactly.
Now he's going to own Commissioner Gordon. I think he will.
Yeah, he'll be fine. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think it was, when he was texting J. Jonah Jameson, and he was like, I think you should give Spidey a chance or something. And JJ texted back, like, no, in all caps with 50 exclamation points. In my head, I read that as J.K. Simmons' voice.
Of course.
Because it has to be.
That was interesting. I think that was the weakest point of Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think that the strength of it was his relationship with Gwen Stacy and dealing with being with her versus being Spider-Man. But I think just the real life stuff, like having a job or trying to pay the bills, like there's a little bit of it, but it doesn't do it nearly as good as Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
I would agree. All right, so going back to the way beginning real quick, the Alex Ross opening credits Those were pretty cool. I thought they were worth mentioning. Do you know who Alex Ross is? You know who Alex Ross is?
I love Alex Ross.
Yeah.
When I'm rich and famous, I will have a household full of original works of art by Alex Ross.
I was wondering, I was like, when I was watching those paintings go by, I was like, I wonder how you could buy some of these, because some of them are pretty well done, pretty cool.
He sells them on his site.
Oh, does he?
Every year at Comic-Con, he's got a big booth on the exhibition floor.
Oh, really?
And he brings some of his paintings, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had $10,000.
$10,000?
Just pick this one up. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you can get prints and stuff too, and they sell like the Comic-Con sketchbooks that I get every year. But yeah, cool. He's awesome. That was a really cool choice, because I think Alex Ross's covers of Spider-Man specifically are really amazing, and so to have him do the opening credits was diamonds.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think one of like my favorite Spider-Man comic covers is Alex Ross's cover. Was it Marvel's #1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Where he's taking the photo through the window?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great
awesome
cover. He does Spider-Man really well. And he kind of has his own unique take on the character too, with like the thicker eye pieces, kind of the black around. I don't know how to explain it.
The new suit is very similar to Alex Ross's style in Homecoming.
Yeah,
it's a very Alex Ross suit. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I think that's it for like the notes that I had. We could go through the plot real quick. So
I do want to touch on Alfred Molina's portrayal. Not only is the character cool, but just Alfred Molina as an actor, just, it was maybe melodramatic in some areas, but I can't think of anyone else who could have done the job as well as he did. And again, his whole arc just being as similar as it was to Spider-Man's. When he said that like keeping something like love inside of you is going to make you sick, we all agree that that's what caused Spider-Man's his power loss, right?
Loss of powers.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next. The whole kind of theme of love and how it affects you and everything like that. I do think that it was weird how he lost his powers. That was something that I never read in the comic book. But I think it was used to great effect here, even though I do think it was a ripoff of Superman 2, how he lost his powers.
Absolutely.
In that movie.
Very Superman 2.
I feel like the length of the second act, and this might just be me, but I felt like the second act was over-long, and I think we spent a lot of time without his powers.
Well, where does the second act even begin? Like the act, like the 3-act structure of this film is it's off. I'm not sure where the first act ends and the second act begins. I almost feel like it starts it's like Dr. Octopus when he like sort of moves into the new world with his powers, like after he killed his wife and got these arms seared to him. I sort of feel like the whole Evil Dead scene in the hospital in the surgery room was sort of like setting up Act 2. That's pretty far into the movie. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, trying to put it together, if looking at the arcs of the characters, especially Peter, the whole movie has to do with him trying to have a normal life versus being Spider-Man, and ultimately deciding to be Spider-Man and giving up the normal life. So it is kind of, there's not really a big crossing of the threshold moment. Right. I think it's probably when he decides that he's going to go to Mary Jane's play, maybe. Here's things aren't going well with work and life, and he has his birthday party where he forgets his birthday, and she's like, it's good to see you and you should come to my play. And then I think that moment is probably when he decides that he's going to try to do it all. He's going to try to be with her and do well in school and be Spider-Man.
Is it like the scene where he's looking back and forth in his closet between the suit for the play and then his Spider-Man suit? Like that scene?
Yeah, I think so. And then as soon as that happens, of course, he's got to stop the guys, the bandits. That's what also I love about this movie. Is the bad guys are actual bandits with black hats and dollar sign bags.
It's a little old-fashioned.
If you put this movie if you put like a film grain on Spider-Man 2 and like showed it to somebody who hadn't seen it and told them that it was made in like 1968, they would probably believe you.
Yeah, just turn it black and white, color the audio, just put like some kind of piano track in the background.
Exactly.
That's pretty true.
It could happen.
I'd agree with that. I think the action of this film was incredible. We had that scene where his bike gets smashed and all the fights against Doc Ock and everything like that. I think this movie really did the action better than the first Spider-Man movie did.
Oh my gosh, the action in this movie is so good.
It really is.
Yeah, when this movie came out, that's when IMAX, the smaller IMAX screens were becoming big in theaters, at least from what I remember, in Denver. But so I was seeing it on the big IMAX screen, and like the scene where the police car does that flip and is about to hit those people. I remember being in the theater like jumping back.
Yeah, I flinched for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that train fight too.
Oh,
and just the way that Spider-Man moves, like the way that he crawls and the way that he moves, and he's always like jumping and moving and very agile and his quick reflexes that he would have as Spider-Man.
Yes.
I think they completely nailed it.
Yeah.
In this.
Especially when they're fighting on the train and the tunnel comes and they have to duck.
Oh yeah.
And then continue fighting.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing when I was a teenager.
It's like an iconic fight scene now, I feel like. It's like one of like cinema's greatest fight scenes.
It's possible
really
that
is.
no Spider-Man film has been able to top that fight scene since.
I think they really tried in Spider-Man 3, like in the subway underground system with his fight against Sandman. I think they were really trying to recapture that magic, but they just didn't.
No.
Yeah, I think the way that it was, some of the Spider-Man swinging was filmed in Amazing Spider-Man was pretty cool. Like kind of almost like the first person, and then just the way that Amazing Spider-Man 2 opens captures like the fun of swinging and the way he moves about the city. But as far as actual fighting goes, I think Spider-Man 2 is the best depiction of the actual action of Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely. I also like the scene where the other train is coming and he has to like stick to the side of the train to avoid getting hit by the other train. That was pretty cool too.
When he falls off the train and like spins his web and ends up sliding and weaving in between traffic is so cool.
The music there is fantastic too. I think got to give it up to Danny Elfman and his fantastic score for this film.
That's true, but the real winner in music of Spider-Man 2 is Dashboard Confessional.
Yes. I think that song plays a larger impact than we think on how we feel about the movie as we come out of it, because it so perfectly captures that magical moment. Like I had that song stuck in my head all night last night, and I'm probably gonna have it stuck in my head all day.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah. Well, and I think it plays. It's so great. It plays to. It's such a product of the time. Like I remember, like this was 2004. Like cut to like 16-year-old Maggie in my red. I had a red minivan that I put blue tape on for spider webs. It was the spider van, and I like toted all my friends around in the spider van. I can share pictures. I was not cool in high school.
That sounds super cool.
Just like driving around in the summer, going to see Spider-Man like multiple times and just like blasting Vindicated by Dashboard Confessional. It's like such a moment of the time. And it really, it's like, it couldn't have been anything else for that movie.
Yeah, the nostalgia factor watching it now is so huge.
For sure.
The whole Spider-Man 2 soundtrack was my jam. Back in the day, it
was a good soundtrack.
It was a good soundtrack for its day. It had like Maroon 5 on it. Had Taking Back Sunday.
It did have Nickelback.
Was on there.
It had Nickelback too. Let's be honest.
No, that was the
Nickelback
first one.
was the first one.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, that was also a product of its time.
Yes. I didn't enjoy the first one as much as the second one, but I remember getting like the Spider-Man 2 video game and then cranking up the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack and just swinging through New York, and that was pretty much
like not even playing the
2003.
game, just like swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't do anything. You just swung around.
Yeah. Memories.
Yeah, that's good times.
Good times, guys. I don't think James Franco has actually aged since 2004.
I don't think so.
he looks still pretty young.
He has become a better actor. I was just so surprised by how horrible his line delivery was. Just ridiculous. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah,
dude.
it was pretty rough. I think Alfred Molina gives the best non-melodramatic performance, and like James Franco just spins around to the other complete opposite end of the spectrum where everything he says is just dripping with drama.
I remember one of the original titles, or I think it was the working title of this film, was Spider-Man Unmasked. And in this movie we have that scene where he was unmasked in front of Harry Osborn, which I thought was a surprising moment. What did you think of that? I guess
I remember seeing it in theaters, and I think just Unmasked is great because he's unmasked in front of Harry, and then at the end too with Mary Jane. But specifically with Harry, I was very surprised that they revealed it, and obviously they were setting up a sequel in that moment.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in the theater when he turns around and Mary Jane is like seeing him without his mask on. And it's such a relief. I was like so excited, because he would never tell her. And so the fact that she sees him and just knows and understands, it's a great putting yourself into the character moment of, with Harry, it's like the dread of him finding out and not understanding. And then with Mary Jane, it's
the relief.
It's such a relief. Yeah. And, now she can make her own choice.
Right. The scene where she's about to get crushed by the wall and he goes in and he jumps in and he saves her and he's like holding the wall. I was like, oh yeah, Spider-Man is that strong. I'm glad they finally like showed how strong he was.
Acknowledge it.
But also I was thinking, Mary Jane, you gotta move.
You can't stop. Get off the ground, run.
I know you're surprised. I know you're in shock.
I did like the character moment. I love the moment where at the very end when Doc Ock and Spider-Man are fighting and Mary Jane grabs a wood board and she decides that she's going to go try to like help. And I love that character moment because I think it's great that she's not just being the damsel in distress, that she's actually trying to do something. Mm-hmm. But I equally love that he just, like, the arms just completely take her out of the frame. Like, she walks up behind him and then immediately just gets, like, shoved aside. Like, that's exactly how that would go.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. Like, it would have been nice for her to have her, like, small moment, but also it does make Doc Ock look like more of a badass where he can handle somebody without even looking. So,
yeah.
Spider-Man took his mask off in that scene to show that he was Peter Parker to Dr. Octavius. Now, that was another aspect I liked about the film, that they sort of set up Octavius as a mentor figure to Peter Parker. It's sort of like Luke Skywalker battling Ben Kenobi. And the fact that just like the relationship that they had, like it was brief, but they definitely had that connection, and and enough to sort of like knock Dr. Octopus was already knocked out, but for him to like just sort of knock some sense into him. He definitely has like, he's like this redemptive moment at the end for Dr. Octopus where he sacrifices himself. He destroys his own dream to save everyone.
I love most of the time, a lot of, the comics, Spider-Man bests his opponents by either intelligence or like speaking to them or something like that, he's not going to outfight a lot of his opponents. He's kind of the scrappy superhero. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated that the thing that really made him overcome Dr. Octavius wasn't just beating him up, but it was like this heartfelt moment of, reasoning with him and giving him back his own words of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys think Doc Ock is really dead? I always wondered that at the very end. I was like, "There's no way he's dead. His eyes are open. He just pull himself out." His arms have given him CPR in the comics before to revive him. That's what I think happened.
That's true because the arms could still be alive.
That is one aspect I really didn't care for in this film, is the fact that like the arms like spoke to him. They sounded like velociraptors. It was like and they hissed and stuff. It's like, all right. Okay.
That's another example of, I think only Alfred Molina could have pulled off that scene where he's arguing with the arms that are talking inside of his head.
Yeah.
Like anybody else, that would have been a train wreck.
Yes.
But he actually makes it work.
Yeah, when we were watching it last night, Joseph's wife, Melissa, actually brought up a good point that I never thought of, which was, why are the arms evil? Like, why are they evil to begin with?
That's a really good point.
It's just best not to ask that question. All right.
Because the story needs them to be.
They could have, done it without the whole AI thing, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
The movie would have been fine. Like, just have him go crazy because he's so distraught about his wife's dying.
Death. Yeah.
And his ambition as a scientist and everything like that. We already saw that he had some of that ambition and that he was, during the initial experiment when a lot of people died or almost died, but he still wasn't wanting to shut it down. So we already kind of saw that side of him. He didn't really need the arms to propel him forward, I think.
Yeah, I think it just makes him a little more sympathetic that, he's being manipulated by these arms as opposed to just being crazy himself.
Yeah, that might be it.
But it's not 100% necessary.
Yeah. So I think that takes us to the end of this review. I think the last 5 minutes of this movie are the best of any other superhero movie ever, because we have that awesome Green Goblin tease, which I lost my mind over in the theater. I remember I was like, oh, he's wearing the green bow tie. Oh my god.
We didn't know.
No.
We didn't know what was coming.
Yeah, we were so naive.
We were so young and stupid. That's how I feel. As far as Spider-Man movie franchises go, the best metaphor I can think of is like Spider-Man movies are like ex-boyfriends, and like Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy is like your high school boyfriend that you're just like super in love with and you just like don't know any better. And then like that's over, and then Amazing Spider-Man comes along and you're like, I didn't realize that Spider-Man movies, like, it's better, and so I'm hoping that Homecoming will continue the tradition, and it's just like the more as you go along you like get better and better Spider-Man movies and they only reveal how bad the other ones were.
Yeah, this will be the one that Homecoming will be the one that you put the ring on.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
I would love to put a ring on Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm planning on it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The very last shot of the movie, when he swings away after she says, go get him, Tiger, and everything like that, it doesn't end with him swinging into the sunset. It
ends with Mary Jane.
With the look on her face.
Love that.
Ambiguous, but interesting. Like, it reminds me of the end of The Graduate, where they're riding off on the bus together, and she's like, the expression on her face is just kind of ambivalent or kind of regret, maybe. They
start off like, really happy, and then like it just slowly kind of like dawns on them. Like you can just see in their facial expressions, like it just like the weight of what just happened, Yeah.
I think that's really, I think Kirsten Dunst is a very talented actor. Like seeing her in Fargo and a bunch of other things. And I have to give her credit for just that look on her face, because it's both like this peaceful, like we get to be together now, and also this completely tumultuous, like, okay, now I'm in this thing, and it's the realization of her watching him go away to fight crime.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would have been great to pair that with the story, because I think the natural progression of that of this story is the death of Gwen Stacy type deal.
Yeah.
To like combine the two, we have this choice and he makes his decision and she makes her decision, but then like reality hits, and dealing with that would be like a great continuation of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they should have made Mary Jane Gwen Stacy and then killed her in the Spider-Man 3 movie, or I don't know.
I mean, they did have Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Man 3 movie.
No, they didn't.
That's right. They did. I mean, I forgot about that. That's right. Bryce Dallas Howard was Gwen Stacy. Oh, such a bad movie. All I can think about when I see Bryce Dallas Howard as Gwen Stacy, though, is when her hair like flew back during the whole dance number in Spider-Man 3. That's all I can think of.
Man, I was sitting in that theater. That's the only time I've just been like, this isn't the movie. Like, this can't be what's happening.
Put on the real movie.
This isn't what's inside Spider-Man 3.
Sam Raimi's sense of humor is just little unconventional. Maybe a little, dead humor is the best way to put it.
Yes. I want to see, like, I think the best choice for a writer for Spider-Man would be like Aaron Sorkin or Joss Whedon.
They would
like
be
that
fantastic.
kind of humor is perfect for Spider-Man. Just kind of like the wisecracks, but also there's like a lot of, I think Joss Whedon more so, just the heart to it as well.
Yeah.
More witty.
Well, like intelligence humor. A lot of it's like the Marvel humor in general of like the MCU right now, because like Joss Whedon did a lot of script doctoring on the early Marvel scripts, and then I feel like that sort of carried on since his departure from Marvel, and just the trailers and so she bought me a corn dog, so that was cool. It's definitely carrying on. Oh man, I cannot wait for Spider-Man: Homecoming.
I can't wait either.
A few more days, not too long.
I know it's coming.
So overall, final thoughts on this film. I think it still holds up. I think it is still. I think I would still give it 4.5 stars. I think most of the movie is about 4 stars, but again, that ending bumps it up to 4.5. So that's what I'm giving it, 4.5.
Yeah, I think watching it, especially with the eye to review it and really critique it, it didn't hold up as well as I would have hoped that it did. I think mainly because of what we talked about sort of the humor and the melodrama and just kind of the tonal problems. But as a Spider-Man movie, and especially if I'm just like, I want to sit back and like go to a fun place and watch a Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 2 is an excellent choice.
Yeah.
So it's still a great Spider-Man movie.
What star rating would you give it?
I would probably give it, I think as a movie, I'd probably give it maybe like 3.5 stars, 3 stars, 3.5 stars, somewhere around there.
I think I'm going to go with Joseph and give it 4.5 stars, maybe 4.5, 4.25 stars.
I'm leaning towards 4, actually.
Really?
I might have to change up my whole thing.
I'm going to go 3.5.
For a long time, Spider-Man 2 was one of my favorite superhero movies, but they've built so much upon what those early superhero movies built, that foundation that they had.
Yeah.
That I think this movie has dropped a few pegs. So.
It takes me back for sure just watching it again. Like, it was like before The Dark Knight, before like movies got super like, I guess, cynical and kind of dark. It was definitely like a fun, bright, emotional film. So emotional, so many emotions, so many feels during this movie.
So many feels.
I feel like that's something that like has been missing from superhero films for a while, I think. And
I agree.
Yeah,
that's valid. Yeah.
I mean, I think I really, watching Wonder Woman is kind of comparable to like the heart and the feeling and the arc behind her and the choice that she makes. Like that was something we haven't seen
in a while.
Like they're very similar in that way. I don't think any of the Marvel, I'm trying to think of a Marvel movie that has the heart or the characterization of what it's truly like to be a superhero as Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. And I think it's because of that emotion, and just the storytelling and the character, everything, that I think I'll stick with 4.5 for my rating.
Alrighty. I think that does it for this review. Maggie, it was a genuine pleasure having you on. I always love talking about Spider-Man with you.
Anytime. I always love a chance to talk about Spider-Man.
I'm really interested in seeing what you think of the new movie when you go see it. So
yeah, for sure.
I'll be texting you.
Yes, I'm sure I'll be seeing it many times, regardless.
I do take issue with the fact that he does have a high school friend, because I've always thought of Peter Parker as the loner.
And a high-tech suit.
I was thinking the same thing.
And the high-tech suit a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, looks fantastic. Yeah. Can't wait to see it. And yeah, that'll be what we review in our next episode. So
real quick, Maggie, you live in LA. You have a few projects coming up and they're working on. Do you want to share those with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So I think first off, I have a film called Impressions that has been a long time coming, and it's going to be available on Amazon Prime to stream probably in the next month or so.
And it's a great film. we saw. I went to your screening, your premiere screening for it, and it was just a great, funny film. Definitely encourage you guys to check it out.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a really fun romantic comedy, and if you want to check it out, I'm going to post the link on our Facebook page, which is just Impressions Film, facebook.com/Impressions Feature Film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so follow us, and you'll get updated to when we release it on Amazon.
Nice. Yes. Can't wait.
Yeah. And then I have the web series that I think I was shooting it the last time I was on with you guys. Yeah. We are now almost done with post, and it's going to be released. It's called The Romantic Method, and that'll be released probably sometime in the fall. So a couple exciting projects getting out into the world.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely link to both of those projects in our episode description.
Yeah, because The Romantic Method, it's not out yet, but you do have like a Facebook, you have a social media presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, getting ready.
All right. Cool. Maggie, we'll definitely have to have you on again as a guest.
Yes, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. All right, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Super glad to have Maggie on as a guest. She is super insightful when it comes to both the comics and behind the scenes film production stuff.
And writing too. I mean, she's not only has she made her own movies, but she writes her own films and stuff like that. So
yeah, definitely. If you get a chance to check out those links in our episode description, make sure you do so because she does good work.
Yeah.
And that does it for this episode. In 2 weeks, we will be reviewing the Spider-Man Homecoming film. So, again, super looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be a week because the film comes out July 7th. So our review will be a week after that.
Yeah. Going back to the trivia question, we have to give our trivia hint. So the question, again, was since 1960, what was the first DC theatrical franchise to have a reboot also in theaters? Same question for Marvel. And the hint is that, remember, made-for-TV and direct-to-video films don't count. They have to be reboots that have been released in theaters.
Yeah.
So go ahead and reach out to us with the answer on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just do a search for Dynamic Duel, and you can find us on all three of those social media sites.
Or you can email us.
Or you can email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or SoundCloud or anywhere you could subscribe to us, go ahead and do that because 2 weeks is a long time between episodes. And, sometimes for me it feels like forever. So as a listener, I'm sure it's easy to, forget to listen. And, if you want to stay up to date with news and reviews and our battles and stuff like that, definitely subscribe to us. And if you're feeling so generous, review us too. Yes. Let us know what you think.
And if you have friends who are into comic book movies, go ahead and share them. Share us with them. Pass us around. Pass us around. It's fun. All right, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then,
up and away,
true believers.